Okay, hello everyone. It's great to have you all on board. It's another time with Tutor.io, the enthusiastic tutor, and in today's tutorial, it happens to be the continuation, the second class we're having on the course PCR372. For those of us who are new to the stream, let's ensure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and as well enroll into our private class where we walk you through your courses without leaving any stone unturned. How do you get to join the private class? All you need to do is to reach out to us on our official website, which is www.tutorio.net. Find the WhatsApp button on the first page that will be displayed. After you must have used that on Google, you use the WhatsApp button on the top right hand corner, send us a direct message, and from there we can guide you into becoming a member immediately. Now, this is a course that is very interesting because it speaks a lot about reality. And from what we have taken from our last class, quite in-depth, strategic, and focused. Still on that pedestrian, still on the same lane, we are going to be talking about Tidwell opinion about understanding the concept called conflict. All right, we're going to be taking Tidwell view, over the term conflict. Now, according to Tidwell, in 1998, Tidwell made a strong declaration. Tidwell advised, in his words, he said, he offers advice that conflict will be well understood and clarified if it is divided into functional, situational, and interactive types. According to Tidwell, it says conflict will be properly understood and clarified if it is divided into three different types, which are functional, situational, and what we refer to as interactive. Okay? Functional, situational, and interactive. All right? It categorized conflict, splitted conflict into three different types for proper clarification and understanding. So let's take each of them, let's dissect each of them accordingly. Okay. Now, just a moment. The functionalist holds that conflict serves social functions. According to the functionalist, they have the opinion that in as much as conflict is concerned, it serves what we call social function. Now let's expand on that. When we say conflict serves social functions, what are we talking about? Let's break that down into pieces. All right. Now, the statement all right, conflict, all right, serve social function simply refer to the perspective of functionalism in society. The perspective of functionalism in the society. Now, functionalists view society as a system made up of what? Let's break that down. Functionalists, all right? Now, they view society as a system made up of what? Interdependence, all right? Sees the society as a what? A system made up of a system. Now, this system is made up of what? Interdependent. All right? When we say interdependent, we can refer to, all right, we can make a good example of what it means by interdependent. We can make a good example of that with the human body, all right, where you have the arms, the legs, the ears, all working together to achieve one purpose. All right, the arm won't say, I'm not part of the body, I want to be alone. Just like the legs won't say that. But the arms, the legs, all work together. They depend on each other. Their functions are different from each other. All right, but it doesn't make the function of the hand cannot be served by the leg, and that of the leg cannot be served by the mouth. They have different functions. So they see the society as interdependent parts, meaning that people in the society, as we live together, we depend on each other to survive. Let's take, for example, can imagine nobody wants to be the cab or the Uber driver. Not everybody owns a car, you know, or nobody wants to sell foodstuff at the market anymore. The person selling foodstuff at the market is there because you need to buy foodstuff, all right, and you can't buy at the same time be the seller. So we all need each other to function as a society. So the interdependent part that works together to maintain what? Stability and social order. To maintain stability. Let's just leave it at that. All right. Now, from this perspective, conflict is not necessarily negative. Instead, it can serve important social function, such as strengthening group cohesion. All right. I beg your pardon, should be cohesion. Strengthening group cohesion, clarifying norms and values, promoting social changes. Now, the functionalists have what we call the constructive view of what conflict should be. All right. They don't see conflict as destructive. All right. Whenever we have misunderstanding or whenever there is conflict in society, it is not because the parties involved want the society to crumble or want the society to be eliminated. Rather, it happens because values needs to be appreciated. Boundaries need to be drawn. All right. Certain clarification has to be made because when you get involved in conflict over values with another person and it was resolved eventually, the person gets to understand, okay, this particular thing, this person does not like it, so I don't do it. All right. Promote social changes. Now, by the time you understand that if I do this, it can spark conflict or it can ignite misunderstanding. You get to understand that this group of people, you don't do this to them. They don't like this set of things. It's more like forbidden for them. So don't do it. So that is what the functionalist sees conflict as. Now, let's move straight ahead to the situationist, all right, which is the next one. The situationists argue that conflict find expression under certain conditions, all right, expression under certain conditions. Conflict find expression under certain conditions, meaning to say the statements, all right, situationalists argue that conflict finds expression under certain conditions simply translates into the fact that conflict does not arise randomly. Okay? Conflict does not arise randomly, but it is being triggered by specific situations or conditions. Now, that's the situationist. The situationists, all right, believe that conflict does not arise randomly. Conflict does not arise randomly. All right. Conflict happens due to, all right, it happens, it occurs, or it is triggered by specific. It is triggered by specific situations or conditions. So we have that as that under situationist or situational, all right, view of conflict. So now we have the next one, which says interactionists, all right, under interactive view of conflict. Now, the interactionists define conflict as the interaction of independent people who perceive goals and interference from each other in achieving those goals. Now, let's break this down properly. From the word interaction, all right? And according to this group of people, they see conflict as the interaction of interdependent people. Remember, we said the society, we need each other, all right? So, based on the fact that me and you, we interact, all right? Interaction of interdependent people, okay? Who perceives incompatible goals. Why do we interact at first if we don't have a mutual understanding? All right. So at the point whereby we no longer see the need for the mutual understanding, and what we now see is incompatibility or incompatible goals and unnecessary interference, then conflict arises. So now, based on this, conflict arises based on interaction and what we refer to as, we can use relationship, but let's just keep it as interaction between interdependence. Between interdependent. Okay? I think there's no need to write that here. That is self-explanatory enough. So let's move to the next one because our time is fast spent and I want us to cover, all right, something reasonable tonight. So that's that on that, according to Tidwell. So Tidwell have broken it down to three types: functional, situational, and interactive. And I've been able to explain all of that. So very quickly, let's go to the anatomy of conflict. All right, anatomy of conflict. And I want us to finish this unit this night. I know we are starting from other units in our next class. Is it Mr. Godwill or Mr. Godwin? Are you on the stream? If you're on the stream, sir, use the, although you told me that you'll be on the road driving home, I believe you've arrived home now. If you're on the stream, you can use the, comment section so I can acknowledge your presence. All right. So now, when we say the anatomy of conflict, what are we talking about? What does the word, and we already understand by now, we understand what it means by conflict already. All right. So we're now saying anatomy, all right, of conflict. So what are we referring to? So let's just quickly talk about what it means by anatomy, and from there we can join both together. When we say anatomy, all right, we are simply referring to the scientific study of the structure, all right, of organisms, all right, their parts, what they are made up of, all right, and how they function. Talking about anatomy, the detailed studying of how a system, a structure, an organism is made up or is made up of, built, how it works, how it functions. All right, the anatomy. So now, talking about the anatomy of conflict, we want to talk about what conflict itself means. All right, what leads to conflict, how it can be managed, or how it can be eliminated if possible. Then we have the anatomy of conflict. In other words, anatomy of conflict is the examination of what something, all right, okay, that's still on anatomy. Examination of what something is like, the way it works, and why it happens. That's anatomy. All right. So now, according to what we have here, Galton in 1966 provides a very useful insight into the anatomy of conflict from the individual and structural level. So according to, so let me just put something down on this. All right. The insights into the creation, all right, creation of conflict, why and how. Okay, so now according to what no, according to what Galton said, okay, Galton said something about conflict. He said, let's look at conflict, the anatomy of conflict from the individual to the structural level. All right, so we have Galton. That's a 1996. So we have from the individual to structural. From the individual to structural level, the network is really something tonight. Okay. All right. What? K, the network is pretty unstable. I think it's about to rain. I think it's about to rain. So I think we are live now. Network is just too unstable tonight. So, as Galton has opined, it must be understood that what is casual, all right, what is casual factor in every conflict is a contradiction or a hindrance that obstructs. A contradiction or a hindrance that obstructs the attainment of a specific goal set by some people. Now, what are we saying here? Let's take a step further, then we come back to this. The contradiction or clash of interest can either occur between individuals or group of people. Still on the anatomy of conflict, Galton is telling us here that when we look at it individual from the individual point of view, and we also look at it from the structural point of view, something is very, very important. There's something very, very important that we must pay detailed attention to. And that is the fact that we need to understand that thing that you call casual, that thing that looks seemingly unnecessary, from the word casual, not serious, you can waive it. That thing that looks casual, that you call a casual factor. All right? Perhaps it might interest you to pay attention that in every conflict, there's always a contradiction. A contradiction or a hindrance, whether individual or structural, in every conflict. All right? There is always a contradiction or hindrance, so to say. This contradiction or hindrance is what obstructs the attainment of a specific goal by, all right, a specific goal set by some people. Now, just like I said earlier, conflict can actually be personal, which is within an individual, and it can also be external, which is between an individual and some other individuals. Now, one thing you can categorize as casual, all right, might not be casual when it comes to the formation of conflict. That thing which you call casual is what mounts up, all right, is what accumulates into what is now being seen as hindrance or contradiction. And the reason why this conflict will eventually happen, all right, speaking of the anatomy of conflict, the reason why conflicts will happen is because when a goal is set, and why do people set goal? They want to achieve this goal. And from a relationship, whether internally or externally, you begin to get contradiction or hindrance vibes, then you begin to make changes. You begin to make adjustments. Why? Because now you can sense a contradiction from the person or within yourself. There's something you are doing that is contradicting or kicking against you achieving your goal. Then you need to begin to make adjustments. Right? Now, the process of making these adjustments, care is not taken, conflict will erupt. And by so doing, conflict, not properly handled, it can be destructive. So now, contradictions or clash of interest can occur in individuals or group of people. All right? When the clash of interest occurs, all of this we are still talking about is still on the anatomy. We are discussing why conflict and how, and how, why conflict, what conflict, and how conflict. That's anatomy. What, how, and why. Okay? The anatomy of conflict, these are the three words: how and why. So as I was saying, when this clash of interest occur between group of people, it is known as disputes. Are we together? When it happens between an individual, it is known as a dilemma. Now, like I said, there are certain stages you get to in life, you will face conflict within yourself. That is called a dilemma. All right. But if it's you and with other people, it is called a dispute. Please note that. I want to talk about dispute. Dispute occurs when two people are pursuing same scarce goal, all right, and they are not ready to exercise patience in resolving their differences. Then you refer to that as dispute. And one of the common characteristics of a group or individual conflict is that it generates energy from the frustration and the aggrieved party. That conflict will be fueled, will be escalated, will be ignited by the party which seems to be frustrated. All right? So we have that as that. Our time is fast spent. We've been able to achieve a lot tonight. So now next class, we'll take it off from the complexity, all right, which is the elementary and complex conflicts. We're talking about the complexity of conflicts. All right. So we're going to be talking about the complexity of conflict. And under it, we have elementary and complex conflicts. Thank you very much, everyone. I believe you've been able to get something in tonight's class. For those of us who haven't submitted our notes, let's ensure to submit our notes and join the private class. Very important. What we is just 30%. 70% is restricted to member of the private class. Reach out to us today and become a member. Bye for now.